to the ABC Podcast.
Always be cool.
The show where your hosts, DC and BK, showcase your local business and real estate pros going gangbusters in leadership, community involvement, and just being cool.
Here are your hosts, serial entrepreneurs, mortgage experts at Summit Lending, and partners in crime, Darren Copeland and Bobby Kerr.
All right, everybody, it's the Always Be Cool podcast, hanging out with your hosts, Bobby Kerr, Darren Copeland.
What's up, everyone?
Man, we are jacked up today. We have got someone really special, Miami Dolphins tackle, protector of Dan Marino's blindside from 1990 to 2000, Mr. Richmond Webb.
All right, everyone, here we go. Born January 11th, 1967, he played college football at Texas A&M University, was the 9th overall pick in the 1990 NFL draft by the Miami Dolphins, was given the assignment, as Bobby was saying, to protect Dan Marino's blindside. He set team records of 118 consecutive starts, along with 7 straight Pro Bowls. Also was named to the NFL 1990s All-Decade Team, and in 2006, he was inducted into the Dolphins Honor Roll. Dolphins legend and all-around awesome guy, Richmond Webb. Welcome to the show, man. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Bobby, Darren, how y'all doing today? I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our pleasure. So I think I told you this when we were hanging out on that cruise ship a couple of weeks ago. I said I strategically chose 2 guys that I wanted to be able to meet and greet and hang out with for a little bit because of their experience and their love with spreading cool stuff through their own podcast. And so I told Darren before I left, I said, I got to get hooked up with Richmond Webb, and I got hooked up with OJ McDuffie, and both those things are happening. So as a lifetime Dolphins fan, man, this is going to be pretty special.
If I'm in company with OJ, I'm in good company. So that's you could have put a period right there. So it's
funny. Actually, I've been talking with him all morning through text. So I think we're going to have him on the show next week. So it'll be a Dolphins festive week or so.
Right. So Richmond, was that, I know it was a cruise for fans. Was that one of the first ones that you've done, or had you done previous cruises like that?
Actually, that was my very first cruise.
Oh, really?
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we had a really good time. I think the only funny thing was, and not just people that was part of the cruise, but people would come up to me and say, "Man, how do you fit in the shower?" Because I just fit by the shower.
Right.
I said, "Hey, if I didn't fit in there, you would know." I said, "You would smell me." I got in there and I made it happen, but we really enjoyed ourselves. Really had a good time. So we definitely plan on doing it again.
Yeah, the food was good.
The food was good. Yeah. Just interacting with the fans. Some of the activities they had planned, it was awesome. But I would like to do one where I don't have so many events to do, where I can just kind of just chill out and plan. But yeah, it was cool though. I did enjoy it, man. Looking at that blue water, deep dark blue water, just cruising, just the breeze. Yeah, and to get away from my cell phone for about a week, that was actually pretty cool.
Isn't that amazing? Bobby and I talk about this all the time. Like, if you really want to go on a true vacation, go on a ship where hopefully, you don't have cell phone reception. Just put that thing in the safe and, just turn it off for a week and just go enjoy life, man. That's the way to live.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I had WhatsApp and we had the low Wi-Fi, but man, after like the first or second day, the first, I think I was kind of going through like withdrawals because you're so used to checking your phone every something
right.
like that. And then, like, ain't nothing coming through anyway. So I finally relaxed and I was like, I probably really needed to detach from it for a little bit and just really mellow out. And that was a good thing.
Well, you said, that you had a good time with all the fans and stuff. And I think it's a perfect segue. I mean, you've kind of always been known as this nice guy, and you really are, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, you more than anybody, especially on that cruise that I got to witness firsthand, you were so involved with the fans and so giving, you and your wife both. And so, like, how does somebody that is just lives in the trenches playing football, you got to have that dog mentality, and then come in real life, man, you are just the sweetheart of a guy that is so giving with your time and your energy. So to maybe talk a little bit about that transition from having to go from on the field attitude to off the field attitude.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is And you're right, you can't be that way on the football field. I wouldn't have played as long as I
Right.
did if I was. But like you say, you transition. It was a little tough transition because you played football for so long, and then all of a sudden you stop playing. So it took me about 3 or 4 years to kind of make that adjustment because every, like around May of the draft, that's known when you go to mini camp or the OTAs, and you be like, now you sit down, you ain't got nowhere to go. So
Right.
you at home with the family. So I did that, and then actually started being able to watch football and enjoy it as a fan. So once I started doing that and interacting with people, now I'm a fan because I don't play anymore. So, I support the team just like everybody else. So I think I'm more connected to the fans now. I'm still connected to my teammates I play with, but I know the guys that play now, but I don't know them personally. So when I meet people that's Dolphin fans, we've really got something in common because we're both just fans and we're rooting for the guys that's playing now, this and that. So once I made that adjustment, it wasn't too hard.
So take us back a little bit, Richmond. Let's go back to growing up in your high school days, and I think you went to high school around the Dallas area. So at what point was it like elementary or junior high? At what point were you like, hey, you know what? I'm probably bigger than most kids that you really thought that you were going to go to at least college or the NFL. Like, what was that point that really dawned on you? Like, hey, I've got something special here.
Yeah, I always, from the time I remember, I was always pretty much easily a head taller than everybody else, even from elementary on. I think, but growing up in the Dallas area, I was a big Cowboys fan. Roger Staubach, Drew Pearson, those days, those are the guys I grew up with.
Yeah.
And I can remember, I think one Christmas, my grandmother had got me the little Dallas Cowboy uniforms.
Yeah, like
with
the
helmet.
Rydell set. Yeah.
Yes.
So I had that. She got my younger brother. She got him a Houston Oilers, and so I can remember that. But just rooting for the guys on that, and then I had to wait because since I was bigger than everybody else, I was also a little heavier than everybody. So when you try to play pee-wee football, it ain't just age. You got to weigh a certain weight, and so I was like,
oh, right.
And the only way I could play was I could have played, but I would have had to play with older kids.
Okay.
And my mom was like, "No, you're not doing that." So I had to wait till middle school. So I actually started playing in middle school, and I always just loved football and basketball, and started playing and played through high school. And I think maybe like my sophomore, junior year, started getting some letters and stuff from different universities and stuff like that. So I said, "Well, at least if I stay on this path, I can at least." Have my college tuition paid for where I can go to school. And then maybe my junior to last year, I thought I might have a shot in the NFL, but that was when I was in college. So it wasn't like I just said, oh, I'm bigger than everybody, I'm going to be able to do this and that.
Right.
Because got to college and just seeing how it was guys that I thought were pretty good and they would go and then not actually make the team. So it was almost like kind of a wake-up call that, guys you think that should make it doesn't necessarily always make it all the time. So
right.
I think that kept me grounded and a little humble.
Because I'm sure, there's a point where, it'd be natural to rely on your, athletic capabilities. And then as you get older and you get around better guys that you actually have to focus and, maybe train harder or just up your game a little bit so you don't get passed up.
Ain't no question. I think that was the rude awakening when I first went to college as a true freshman. High school, you're getting recruited, so it's like you're on a honeymoon with all these different. They're telling you all the good stuff.
Right.
Oh, we want you. You're gonna do this. They're just stroking your ego. And then I got to college, and some of the guys that were in my class was just as big as I was, and then it was some guys that were, maybe I was the same height, but they were a lot more physically developed because, they've been in the weight program and all that. And it was like, oh, okay.
Okay. I get it.
Okay. Yeah. So it was a rude awakening, but the honeymoon was over once all the upperclassmen came in. I can definitely say that.
Right.
Well, I think it all worked out considering you go number 9 overall to the Miami Dolphins in the NFL draft in 1990. Why don't you kind of take us through that experience? So we've had a lot of professional baseball players and football players on this show, and we'd like to always ask them to kind of go stroll back through memory lane and relive that draft day and talk about where you were and how you got the call and what were the emotions going on. We would love to hear that perspective.
Yeah, it was, I think going in my senior year, I was actually kind of nervous because I had played offensive guard my sophomore and junior year, and then like maybe a week or two before the season started, they said, well, we're going to move you to left tackle. And so in my mind, I was like, either this can go really good or it can go really bad.
Right.
Because I was comfortable at guard. I wasn't necessarily comfortable. So it actually turned out to be pretty good. And then met a couple of agents and stuff. And they was like, oh, yeah, they saying you're going to be a top 3 round draft pick. And I was like, I don't know about that. And so I kept playing. And then at the end of the season, I got invited to the Senior Bowl. And I also got invited to the Combine. And I was like, everybody that I knew, they said, you can go to the Senior Bowl, but if you play well, it helps your draft status. But if you play bad, it can go either way. So I said, man, I got to take this chance because I think I was at first considered like maybe a late first, early second round pick. So I went there, and Buddy Ryan, speaking, we're talking about Philadelphia. So Buddy Ryan was my Senior Bowl coach. So I said, well, I'm going to just take my shot. I go up to him, and I said, hey, coach. I say, is there any kind of way that I can play offensive guard? I said, I can really play guard. I still believe that I was a better guard because I only played 1 year. And he looked at me, and he kind of smiled. He said, no. He said, everybody wants to see your tackle, so you're going to be playing tackle. So I said, okay, well, I'm here now. Let me just do the best I can. But I think that the practices were tougher than the game. And then I had a good week of practice, good game. And then I shot up, I guess, maybe to a late first round to middle first round. And then I went to the Combine, and I had a good workout there. And then they were saying, as high as top 5. But I said, well,
wow.
Hopefully somewhere in the first round. And then when draft day, when the draft came, it was totally different than what it is now. It's like going to the Oscars. It's big time, which I think they do a great job with it. But I went home to Dallas, my parents' house. And back then, a few guys would go to like New York, and that's where they'd have all the phones with the helmets of the different teams.
Right.
They'd have my sitting there, but I went home, and then I got the call, and it actually was Coach Shula on the phone, and he said the phone rang, everybody got quiet, and I picked up the phone, and I said, hello? He said, is this Richmond? I said, yes. He said, this is Dan Shula. Are you ready to be a Dolphin? I said, yes, sir. So I was so happy because I was going to Miami. I was going to play for, Coach Shula was one of those guys like Tom Landry, was a few guys that was in that level for me. And then it was somewhere warm. That was my prayer.
There you go.
Let me go somewhere warm. And then I get to play with Marino and Duper and Clayton, the Mark brothers. It was like, man, you couldn't ask for a better situation. So I was definitely happy I got drafted by the Dolphins.
That's amazing. So talking about the Combine, because the Combine and the draft, I mean, it's become a spectacle these days, right, Richmond? I mean, as Kansas
year-round sport now.
Yeah. As Kansas City fans, we had it really good. We had the Super Bowl this year down in Phoenix, and then we had the draft here in Kansas City and had the chance to go down there, and it's like a full-blown fashion show production, right? Like these guys are like all decked out and all that. But let's talk about the Combine a little bit. So did you have to take the Wonderlic test?
I did take that test. Yeah.
How was that?
It's a test. From what I kind of remember, it's not designed for you to finish the test. They just said do as best you can and do that. But I think they give you way more questions that you can answer. But I think it's depending how you answer the questions. I think it determines, like, do you handle pressure well?
Right.
I think it's something. It's determining. I don't know for sure, but yeah, I took it and
Clearly you did.
Yeah, I did.
Clearly you did okay.
I guess. Yeah, I guess so.
That's great.
I never knew what I did on it, but I said okay.
Right.
So you're talking about Coach Shula making that call and how special that was. Obviously, in the opinion of many, he's the greatest NFL coach of all time. Obviously, has the most wins under his belt. Oh, we're gonna say something?
No argument for
me either. Obviously, like he's the greatest of all time. Very much known for being hard nosed, very tough love, old school guy, right? So maybe share a story or two of some memories with Coach Shula on the field, off the field, at practice. I mean, we know that he was just a tough SOB.
Oh, no question. Once I got there, I learned pretty quick. So after I got drafted, I think it was the NBC affiliate station that wanted me to come on, and I went down to the Dallas NBC studios, and they piped me in Miami, and I can't remember who the reporter it was or whatever, but they start asking you about, are you excited? And somebody asked me, said, "What do you think of Don Shula?" I said, "Oh, he looks pretty cool. He wears sunglasses and he's got a tan," which normally living in Florida, I was like he did. And so I made that statement. My coach was like, my offensive line coach was like, "Oh no, he's in for a major shot." And so I got there, everything was cool. And then I think the first thing was the pressure of running what was called a 12-minute run. And that was like a conditioning test. And it was, I think it was attainable, but it was just so much pressure for me. I never did. And I was like, they had all the coaches, everybody would be here, this and that, and everybody would have stopwatches, and you need to pick it up a little bit. And then, it seemed like every time we ran it, it was so hot and humid out there. And I was like, oh my goodness. So that was that. And then it just knowing that. But I think the thing with Coach Shula was it was almost like if you messed up, like say I jumped off sides or whatever, out of 80,000 people in the stands, it seemed like I could hear him from the sideline. "Hey, what the hell are you doing out there?" This and that. And then I would go to the sideline. I would see where he was, and I would take an angle opposite way, but you could hear him coming towards you because you would use your peripheral vision.
Right.
Man. But he just demanded excellence. Yeah. And I think, he focused so much on the little things like penalties can stop a drive, not knowing what to do, this and that. And so that's why we're always one of the least penalized teams because he focused on that. Sure, we made mistakes, but it wasn't like we would make mistakes to just take us out of drives or whatever and this and that. And I think that was a good thing because it continues to transition with you, not only on the football field, but just in life after football. So, yeah, great lessons from Coach Shula.
So he was obviously huge on the fundamentals, right? Do the small things that turn out to be big things. Make sure you do them right.
Yeah, I think what he realized is, and you guys can attest to that, majority of the time, if you look at NFL teams, the talent is pretty equal. Every now and then you'll find a team, they're just like, okay, they're loaded. But pretty much everybody else, this quarterback might be better than this one, but they might have a better defensive line or linebacker. So it kind of balances out. So sometimes what actually makes the difference is who makes the less mistakes. And if you look at the scores, I think the average, when I was playing was normally 3 or 4 points was the average of the win-loss between teams. So that's a field goal. So I jump off sides, that could take us out of field goal. Now we got to punt. So instead of having an opportunity to score, you punt and that could cost you the game. So it's just the little minute, fine details that you just kind of learn to focus in. It's like, now every play is important, this and that. And yeah, that was instilled in me early on.
Yeah, because it seems like, Coach Shula was not only, coaching, men at a young age, not only just the game of football, but he was actually coaching you the game of life at the same time.
Yeah, for him to have the success that he had and to have winning seasons and 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. That's almost heard of, but it was the same formula. So if it ain't broke sometime, why fix it?
Sure.
And I think that's why he has so much success. And I think that's why a lot of his guys transitioned on to, life after football to do really well, because that's what was instilled in you.
But what a great message, for all things, not just football, like we said, do the little things right each and every day, and it's going to set you up for success tomorrow. So thank you for sharing some of those stories. And you're talking about, man, the success of those teams in the 90s, in particular, the teams that you were on. I don't think the Dolphins had a losing season the entire time you played for them for 11 years. Is that right?
I believe you're right. And I guess what they consider a losing season, if you go like 8-8, they would say 8-8 wasn't a losing
Correct,
season.
yeah.
But I think a lot of times with us as players, and I think we did that maybe one year, that wasn't really acceptable to us. But, like for the NFL stuff to say, well, it's not a losing. It's not, but it's not typical of what we expect from ourselves, because I think that was the thing with Coach Shula as well. We would set goals, win the division, win the division. That was the first goal, to get to that, because if you win the division, puts you in good position to at least have a home game, and then you win the first one, then you're in the playoffs, and anything can happen. So, but yeah, it's pretty impressive to not have a losing
Very
season.
impressive. Well, I mean, gosh, let's just transition to this. So those 90s teams, the rivalry between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. And luckily we've got that rivalry restored now. But maybe talk a little bit about all those years, especially the early 90s, when it was just banger after banger, fighting over wild card divisions, AFC championships. And of course, we all know that Buffalo went on 4 straight Super Bowls, but maybe talk a little bit about that strong rivalry, and then go into talking about you, Richmond Webb versus Bruce, right? Like, what a great rivalry. So Bruce Smith, Richmond Webb, have at it.
Yeah. When I first got there, in college, you kind of figure out why this team is your rival, why you don't like them, this and that. You're in the same conference as that. So I knew we were in the same division, but it was like the Jets hated us, New England hated the Dolphins, and Buffalo. And I was like, man, what's going on? And, being a rookie, you just don't know the history, especially with me not growing up following. I would watch Monday Night Football with Dan and them, but not follow like that, because, I was from Texas, this and that. So I think I grabbed a media guide, and I can't remember if it was after the first game. Maybe it was my second year. And I was reading, excuse me, and I saw like the Buffalo Bills Dolphins matchup. And I was reading through there, some of the old stuff. And then I ran across and I was like, oh, so the Dolphins beat the Bills like 20 times in a row. Like, I don't think the Bills beat them in the 70s.
Yep.
Right.
And that's what it is.
There it is.
Fans was like, sometimes they even throw snowballs at the bus. I was like, man, they taking this a little too serious.
Right.
But I said, now I understand the rivalry. And I was like, okay, if this is the way it's got to be, this is the way it's got to be. And but I always look forward to playing against Buffalo and those guys, because they had some really great teams. I think people look at it and say, well, they went to 4 Super Bowls and lost, but to actually go to 4 consecutive Super Bowls back to back to back. And I thought legitimately they should have probably won the first one against the Giants.
Right.
If they win that one, maybe they have a little bit more success, because that was tight game. Field goal cost, went wide right or whatever.
Right.
But just battling against those guys. And I think the thing was, that was the measuring stick. And like you said, we would make it. I think my rookie year, we went 12-4. They went 13-3. So it just showed they was a little bit better than us, and we just couldn't get over the hump. But I always had a lot of respect for them, but I always look forward to playing against them, because, if you can play with these guys, you can pretty much play with anybody in the league. So that, and then over time, it was, like you said, the Bruce Smith thing, and, we both wore 78 and just matched up 2, sometimes 3 times a year, and that was the toughest guy I played against, but I look forward to playing against him because you want to see where you stack up against the best.
Sure.
And, sometimes he won, sometimes I won, but, that's part of the game. But I always look forward to playing against him. And I had respect for him, and I think he had respect for me. So it was definitely good. I had some great times playing against Buffalo.
So that was one of my things on the notes here is how was your rivalry with defensive end Bruce Smith? Because obviously you guys would see each other at least twice a year and then probably in the playoffs as well. So, I mean, you guys matched up all the time together. So other than Bruce Smith, who was like maybe one or two other defensive ends that were really at the top of their game that you guys had a good banter with?
Yeah, I tell people it was just every Sunday. I remember when this was my preseason we played. So we opened up with Chicago. So I played against Richard Dent. I think the second game was maybe the Eagles, Clyde Simmons. They had Jerome Brown inside, Reggie White, Pitts. So that front four. We played Denver. They had Carl Mecklenburg and Simon Fletcher. And then my last preseason game was Minnesota Vikings, and they had like Chris Dolman, which was over me, Henry Thomas, Millard. It was just like, it doesn't get any easier. It's just every Sunday it's a guy. You play the Saints, Pat Swilling and Ricky Jackson.
Did you guys did you ever face the Kansas City Chiefs? Now I know you beat us in the playoffs in the early 90s, but we had Neil Smith and Derek Thomas there for a hot minute.
Oh
yeah. Neil, thank goodness, was on the other side, but I went against Derek Thomas, and that guy was so fast, and he seemed like he could stay low and just. So you really couldn't get a good lick on him and this and that. But if you were late, he was gonna make you pay. So it was just. Played against Derek a couple times, but like I say, it just doesn't stop. Every week is somebody.
So it almost seemed like Derek Thomas, when he was coming around the corner, he would almost be running like
the ground
sideways. Yeah. Right? Like you said, he kept so low to the ground.
I remember, I want to say Kansas City was playing Seattle, and I think he had 7 sacks. And I think he missed the last one. And the Seahawks end up winning the game, but you get 7, almost 8 sacks. If you get the 8 win, but it's like, man, that's crazy.
Wasn't Dave Craig the quarterback at the time?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Craig was, yep. So y'all remember, y'all remember that.
Because then like a year or two later, Dave came over and was actually our quarterback. Yeah.
Actually, there's another story of another quarterback that was with the Chiefs, but he also ended up with the Dolphins. So I was watching some old clips from you playing because, in the 90s, that whole decade, that was my era of growing up a Dolphins fan. And there was a game, and I hope you can talk a little bit about this because this is the first game I remember watching on TV. So growing up in Kansas City, didn't really get Dolphins games on. But Thanksgiving Day, 1993, your hometown Dallas Cowboys, the snow there's an ice and a snowstorm coming through the roof. So I'm laying the scene here, but I want you to talk about it. Oh my gosh. It's neck and neck coming down to the wire, and Richmond, take it from there.
And you talking about my man, Steve DeBerg.
Yeah.
So
Steve DeBerg was the quarterback for the Dolphins.
And it came down to, we were trying to kick a field goal to win the game, and some kind of way the field goals get blocked. Like you said, it was ice on the field. It was no footing, this and that. So the ball gets blocked, but it's advancing forward, this and that. And so I start seeing some of my offensive linemen, Ron Heller, Burt Widener, they start like kind of trotting down toward the end zone where the ball is going. And next thing I know, I see Leon Lett. He's running, and he tries to jump on the ball. And it slides, and then I see like Burt and them, they trying to cover the ball, and I was sitting there looking at them like, the ball was blocked. What the hell is everybody doing? I guess I ain't know all the rules or whatever. And so they jumped on the ball, and the referees got together, and I was like, man, what's going on? And the thing, I watched the replay, and I saw it again, but the funny thing about the replay was, when Dallas blocked the kick, if you can go back, if you can watch it, they showed I think Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson, they was on the sideline.
Yep.
They was jumping, and then they stepped lower. They was like, "Oh no!" And then they came back with the deal. They respotted the ball. We got a chance to kick it, and we kicked it and won that game. And actually, people were thinking that was going to be the Super Bowl matchup, Dallas versus Miami, because of the way the game played. It was a close game, this and that,
Right.
and then. The bad thing about that is we had a ton of injuries after that, and I think we needed to win one game because we were like 9-2 at that time, and we only needed to win one game to get in the playoffs. But we had so many injuries, we beat up,
missed the playoffs altogether. Yeah,
that was the last game we won.
I think that was Dan was out all season pretty much with his Achilles torn.
Yeah.
Well, if Leon just would have not touched the ball, it would have
game
been
over,
right?
Yeah. Game over. Yeah.
Because everyone was standing away, and then he just slid in from nowhere.
Sprinted by himself.
Well, didn't he have a thing at the Super Bowl the year before where he did something similar?
With
Don
Beebe or something. Yeah, Beebe knocked the ball out.
Oh, yeah.
Something. He was running. And he slowed down right before he got in. And
Beebe knocked it out. That's
poor Leon Lett.
Yeah. You got to know the rules, right, Richmond? You got to know the rules.
Gosh.
Know the rules and never let up.
Man, that game is burned into my memory. Just indoor stadium for the most part, Dallas, Texas, ice and snowstorm, those teal jerseys popping in the white. It was just a great memory. I love it.
Okay, so I have to throw a shout out to one of my buddies. So we have a mortgage company here in Kansas City, Richmond, and we know a lot of mortgage guys around the country. Well, one of our buddies, his name is Eddie Skinner, down in Texas. He's a huge Texas A&M fan, right? Season ticket holder, all that. He tells us how bad our college teams are up here in football, and that's fine. That's cool. So what made you decide, and we'll come back to the Dolphins, but when you were a younger kid, what made you decide to go to A&M over any other school out there?
Well, I received probably letters or media guides from pretty much everybody all over the country. But I knew I didn't want to go too far away from home because I wanted my parents to be able to see me be able to play. And it just, it could put a financial strain on you if you get too far away and your parents want to come see you play and this and that. So I focused on most of the schools. Back then it was the Southwest Conference and the Big Eight. So I visited SMU, Baylor, Texas A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. And then I think it came down between A&M and Oklahoma State. Barry Switzer was at Oklahoma. And so I decided on Texas A&M. I had a great visit there. It seemed like it was a good fit. And then also I kind of figured that I wanted to live in Texas, even if I had an opportunity to play professional ball. I wanted to come back to Texas and live. So just the network aspect of it, this and that, it seemed like the perfect fit. So I chose Texas A&M, and I had a really great experience there, this and that. And sound like Eddie did too, because he's hyping us.
Oh man, it's just not. It's just nonstop, man. It's just how it is when you got buddies. And they love a certain team, and they'll let you know how awesome it is. But like when your team wins, you don't hear boo from them, right? So it's all fun, man. So no, he'll really know that.
I can't say this. I can't say this. And I had some friends of mine came down from the University of Miami. Typically, if you're a team that's playing against A&M, it's a good place to come watch a football game. Most of the Aggie fans are pretty welcoming and this and that, and a lot of the Hurricane fans say they had a really good time. I think everybody has some a-holes from time to time, but overall, I think A&M has a pretty good fan base where, like, if you wanted to go watch a road game, it'd be a good place to go watch a game.
That's awesome, man.
That is. So we'll turn it back to your pro days here. By the way, Eddie just got a shout out from Richmond Webb, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You're welcome, Eddie. So let's obviously you were tasked with protecting the left side of possibly the greatest thrower of a football in the history of the world, right? And we all know that came short on some Super Bowl championships for the Dolphins and Dan Marino, but throwing the football, he was like the Patrick Mahomes of the 80s and 90s, right? He just had an art form. So maybe talk a little about some inside perspective of working so closely with Mr. Dan Marino and just being able to witness him and knowing that you had such an important part of his success and the team's success by locking down that left side.
Well, I think for me, like when me and Keith got there, I think we both realized Dan was already like an icon in South Florida. I mean, he was 7, 8 years older than us, and he'd already started lighting up the record books. And so it was Don Shula and it was Dan Marino. So for me, it was like, Coach Shula put us on the blind side of the quarterback. And so I was like, my thing is I don't want to be remembered as the guy that gets this guy hurt, because if you are
Right.
that's not a good thing, and nobody's gonna ever forget it. So that was added pressure, and then being a first round pick, you always want to prove that you're worthy of the selection that the team took to invest in you and say, hey, this is the guy we picked, this and that. And I think one of the things, great coaching staff, but the other thing was, I think I missed maybe a week of training camp, me and Keith. So they got us signed pretty early, which I think that's valuable for your higher draft round, because if you miss most of training camp, back then it was 2 days. It's not anymore, but we were installing plays in the morning, afternoon. So once you get behind, it's almost impossible to get caught up.
Right.
And I tell people, it's not that they're not great players, but when you don't know what you need to do, you're going to kind of be hesitant. You're going to kind of be thinking, do I block this guy? Do I block that guy? Or if you're a wide receiver, do I run this route? Am I supposed to turn out or turn in? So once you learn it and know it, you can just go execute it, which speeds up your progression. So I think with us getting camp early, that definitely helped us out. But I think the other thing that helped was we were side by side. We was rookies, and we had fun, but we could relate because we was in it together. You know what I'm saying? It was like we came in together. So I think that was a great thing. And man, that was the best thing they could have did was draft Keith Sims in the second round. So I was so happy. He made my job so easy.
You know what's funny? So we were doing some research, and I came across an old video. It was on YouTube of you and him back in it was like 1990, and you can tell like you guys did really good, but you can tell the quality of video from 30 some years ago to today. It's just like it was crazy. But I think it ended with you guys sitting like by the side of a pool, hanging out. That's so cool.
Well, the end of that video, it actually is Keith. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Keith in that video, and again, for Keith Sims, for those listeners, played left guard right next to Richmond. And in the video, Keith says, man, Richmond, wouldn't it be great if we could talk about playing for another 10 years for the Miami Dolphins on the left side of this line, and how cool that would be into the year 2000. And I know Keith didn't stay there quite as long, but you guys were together for almost a full decade. So I thought that foreshadow was a really cool part of that video.
Right. Because it looked like it was straight up from the local NBC affiliate or something like that.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, like you say something without really knowing it's going to manifest.
Right.
And then you go back years later and you be like, wow, how did I know to say that or whatever? And it actually came to fruition. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So, we have all kinds of guests on the show, and, we are in Kansas City, so we get a lot of Chiefs players, Royals players. And, everyone wants to hear stories. The Royals players tell their best George Brett story or whatever. Do you have your favorite Dan Marino story?
I think the one I've told before, and it was me and Keith was rookies, and I think we were going through training camp, and he calls us over. He said, hey, come here. And we said, yeah. He said, what's the most important thing you got to remember? And so we kind of look at each other, and we was like, the snap count. He was like, no. And I said, like, the play? And he's like, no. And so we're puzzled. We're like, what do we got to remember? He said, you got to remember to always protect me. He said, that's the most important thing. So he kind of laughed and this and that, but that was pretty funny. But yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay, yeah, that one went right over our heads, but it didn't go over Dan's. He said, let me just put a little snippet in here that y'all need to remember this part right
Keep me upright.
That's awesome. Say, speaking of stories, Richmond, like, Marino was known for throwing the ball so hard. So was there any stories of the receivers, like during training camps or practices, just going, oh my gosh, like I broke a finger or something like that? I mean, would those guys ever complain with that missile coming to them like that?
I think what they had to adjust to with Dan was the ball would, like, when you got ready to turn, the ball was already there. You know what I'm saying? So normally you run and you turn, and it was like, no, when you turn, it's there. So when you come out your break, he's already released it. So it's like just got to get used to the instantaneous, like boom, 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 boom.
Right.
And I'm sure OJ can talk about that.
Yeah.
And one thing I know about Dan too, because I remember, as OJ got older, we called him Mr. Third Down, because on third down situations, Dan trusted that if he threw that ball to OJ, he was going to get that first down. And he did. It was like, yeah. And we always claimed OJ as a lineman, even though he was undersized and that. But he was such a tough guy. He's one of the toughest guys I played with. And normally you don't hear that from a receiver. Not saying it's a knock.
Right.
Yeah, he was, OJ was the real deal.
That's awesome.
Well, so I know you ended your career in Cincinnati, and probably one of the greatest offensive linemen of all time, somebody you really looked up to. And he was already gone from Cincinnati whenever you came in, but Anthony Munoz, I know that was a big role model of yours. So maybe talk a little bit about his game, how it helped you, and if you've ever had any type of relationship with him.
Yeah, I actually met him my rookie year. I made the Pro Bowl, and we played in the Pro Bowl together. But, he was always the standard. That's what was judged, and he played 12 or 13 years and was just such a dominant player. So highly respected, this and that. But very nice guy. Met him, and, I don't have nothing. I can't find anything bad to say about Anthony Munoz. I think if you could, that person better not say it too loud, because he's,
he was tough
across the board. Everybody loves him, and,
right.
Always willing to lend a helping hand. He's just that type of guy. So, but to have that type of, athletic ability, and to have the career he had, and be as consistent as he did and the dominant as he did for so long, he's one of the best to ever lace him up.
Yeah, he was.
So what are you up to these days, Richmond? You have your own podcast, correct?
Well, I'm on a podcast with it's really Reasons.
Sure.
That
Okay.
Me and Ball Game we do that once a week, this and that, which is
Nice.
That's enough for me. And
Right.
Man, I can't keep coming up with
different
New
topics.
material.
Be craving, and this. I mean, they be hungry, man. You feed them, and they still ready for more and more. And I was like, that would wear me out. But yeah, do the podcast, and then just adjusting to being an empty nester. My youngest daughter, she's at Texas A&M,
wow.
And then just got dibble and dabble in real estate. Got some rental properties and other little investments in real estate. But other than that, that's it.
Do you still have JBM Enterprises?
I use that like an LLC
for acquisitions and stuff. Yeah.
Stuff from, yeah.
Man, it just sounds like you're just living the dream, man. Enjoying life. Probably keeping up with some of your football buddies, doing the podcasts. Now, are you still an avid watcher of the Dolphins and how they're doing currently?
Yeah, I normally try to make it for a couple of games, but I guess I'm going to have to go to YouTube TV.
Yeah.
Rec TV used to have the
Sunday
NFL pack. So now I'll probably have to go to YouTube and just get my honeydews done so I can, watch football on Saturday and Sunday. That's
smart,
it.
Man.
Oh, we lost him.
I think it froze up.
Richmond, can you hear us?
Okay.
All right,
you back now?
Yep.
It froze for a minute.
Yep. Just froze up.
There you go.
I think we're a little bit better. So before we wrap it up here, Richmond, so I know in your career, I think you only played for 4 head coaches, if I'm correct. You had Don Shula, you had Dave Wanstatt, you had Jimmy Johnson and Dick LeBeau in your 2 years in Cincinnati. Like some pretty high class NFL coaches. So maybe talk a little bit about the different, as a player's perspective, learning the different styles of these really successful coaches and how that had an impact on you as a player.
Yeah, well, I think with me being first up under Don Shula and how disciplined he was, it allowed me to adjust to everybody else. Like when Jimmy Johnson came in, he was really tough. And I can remember I called one of my old Aggie teammates, Kevin Smith. He was a cornerback in Dallas and had played for Jimmy Johnson. I was like, hey, what's up? What I need to do, this and that. He said, man, you're going to be fine. He said, just work hard and practice and keep doing what you're doing. You're going to be fine, and which was true. I think the first year was the toughest with Jimmy because he was trying to see who truly wanted to be there or whatever. And so we worked really, really hard. And then, but as far as his knowledge of the game and this and that, he was right there with Coach Shula. As far as knowledge of the game, this and that. And then Dave Wanstead, which was the defensive coordinator. So after Jimmy left, great defensive mind. And then I found out that he actually played at Pittsburgh and was an offensive lineman and all that. And then my college offensive line coach, Joe Alvazano, was up there with a lot of those guys. So, and then my college head coach, Jackie Sherrill, was up there with him. So I knew a lot about the Pitt thing, from him, talking to him about that and stuff. So that was pretty cool. But just guys that had played and just very intelligent guys. And then, Dick LeBeau, he was a Hall of Famer, defensive back. And I had to do a little research on him, this and that. And, he would joke around a little bit. But what I could appreciate about him, with him playing and then coaching, is I think he understood, like, some of the veteran guys. And he would look out for us as, making sure we got enough rest where we wasn't getting where we could go perform on Sunday. So I think he understood that aspect because he had a long career in the NFL too. So not only the coaching side, but the player side. So, man, just 4 great coaches. So I was fortunate.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. Because, those are some amazing coaches.
Yeah.
And, we talk about this, in the NFL, it could be any sport, but, a lot of the time it depends on the organization that you get drafted from and the coaching staff that's there. It literally can make or break you. And, we have a front row seat of having Andy Reid here in Kansas City, who's, a quarterback's guru. So you just never know if Mahomes goes to another team, you just never know how all that's going to shake out. So, it is important as far as where you land and who your mentors are, especially when you're a young player.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point because, I think Andy Reid knows how to maximize Mahomes' skill set. He always puts him in the best position to get the most out of him. And I think he could go somewhere else and he would still be a really good quarterback, but it's almost like, do you know how to set it up? You know what I'm saying? It's almost like the play call, all that goes into effect, but Andy Reid does a really good job of that. And just, it's exciting because they pull some during the playoffs. They did the little circle. He lets them fun and he understands it. But I think they understand when it's time to work, it's time to work. But we can mix a little bit in. But as long as we stay focused on what we're supposed to be doing, and I love the State Farm commercial.
Right, exactly.
Those will be interesting with Aaron Rodgers now being with the Jets. Those commercials, see what they do.
Yeah, it's gonna be all Patrick.
Cool. All right, so rapid fire here, Richmond. All right, so just quick answers, unless you want to expand a little bit. Number 1.
Okay.
How far do our Dolphins go this year?
We're in the playoffs. I don't know, but playoffs, and we're gonna win at least the first.
All right,
game.
winning the first playoff game.
Okay.
Is Tua the guy?
Yes.
Texas A&M Hall of Famer, Miami Dolphins Ring of Honor member, Richmond Webb National Football League Hall of Famer. Why hasn't it happened yet?
Time.
It's going to happen. Yeah. I think it's going to happen. You're there, man. You are there when guys like Tony Baselli get in and your stats blow him out of the water, you're going to be in there, brother.
Yeah.
Anything we can do to help spread that word.
Yeah. And you know what? I know one thing, Richmond, the day that you go in, I know one guy that's going to be in Canton for sure. And it's going to be this guy right here making a road trip, probably just yelling your name. So, and I would love to see that.
Oh yeah.
I will go there as well, man. Like that day needs to happen. And hopefully that will happen very soon.
I think it will.
You can even rock your Chiefs gear.
Exactly. I'll be happy to do that. I won't even be upset about the early 90s losses in the playoffs, to the Dolphins. It's okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, good friend and Willie Rofe played for.
Yeah.
We got some those years with Willie Rofe and Will Shields. Man, those were just some phenomenal years.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, man, Richmond Webb, thank you so much for joining us, man. Is there anything else that you want to put out there or promote that you've got going on before we shut this down?
No, I don't have anything. I just appreciate the opportunity, and like I said, we had a great time on the cruise and this and that, and we talked about it, and we finally got it set up because I was moving around a little bit, but you were patient. And I appreciate you being patient with me, but we got it done.
We appreciate you, brother.
I was happy to be on your show and meet Darren and Kansas City. So we got it. Maybe he'll save me some of that good Kansas City barbecue when I come.
Hey man, you come up anytime. You just let us know.
Hey,
we'll get you
the
hooked
Dolphins
up.
are coming to Kansas City this year, so if you want to make a road trip, we'll treat you right.
Yep.
Okay.
Keep that in mind.
Look at the schedule comes out tomorrow.
Thursday.
No, Thursday.
Yep.
I'll touch base with you. Maybe we can set something up. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I got quite a few Dolphins fans from across the country that are going to be coming into town for whatever it is, and so we're going to be doing a big Dolphins tailgate. So that'd be pretty cool if you were in town too. That'd be awesome.
That'd be cool.
We'll talk about it.
Man, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Yeah. All right, guys. And this has been the Always Be Cool podcast, hanging out with your hosts, Bobby Kerr, Darren Copeland, and today's special guest, Richmond Webb of the Miami Dolphins. Be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review of the show wherever you listen to your podcast. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Always Be Cool Podcast. Mr. Richmond Webb, everybody. Find him on Twitter at Richmond Webb. All right, Richmond, stay on the line for just a second. We're going to shut this thing down. Take care, guys.
Okay.
If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, Darren and Bobby thank you from the bottom of their hearts.
They hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave them a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you're listening. Please share this episode with others who may be interested in our community.
Also, feel free to let DC and BK know which business or community leaders you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch in the comments or on social media. See you next time for a new episode. And remember, always be cool.
This podcast is powered by Summit Lending, NMLS number 1850081, Equal Housing Lender.